just listened to me last year.
I don't want to know.
They were expensive last year. They're still expensive.
Yeah, but this
The
year.
alternative's more expensive, that's the only reason.
Yeah, except. Thanks, Councilwoman Barton. We put in our application first.
You're gonna get 60% back.
Yeah, opposed to zero. Last year would have been zero.
Last year was zero.
How about that?
Okay.
For the e-poll books?
Yeah.
Reimbursement from the state or?
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Well,
Yeah, he's gonna
Don't-
call in tonight.
don't let me paint a picture that's not accurate.
He's a.
We put it in our application.
He's not coming to.
Right, so so in the application that we put in for 2.8 for the Excel, we added certain things that we thought we need to the Excel. So we put the whole percent. And we're led to believe that that would be fine.
But make sure the new members that talk to Bob.
did you put it for another audio machine?
Okay, so how are you doing?
Fantastic.
The total, all right.
Oh, 343, right?
No, that's for the poll books.
Yeah, what's the poll
Yeah.
book? 343?
Yeah. And I think that includes the maintenance.
That includes the
licensing.
maintenance,
Okay.
yeah.
I think 150, that changed.
So that's because it includes the maintenance.
Okay. This is a special finance committee meeting, and I'd like to get started. Do we have any courtesy of the floor?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir?
Thank you. I just want to briefly speak, Lamont McClure, Bethlehem Township. I just want to briefly speak to 2B, the 10X Software Solutions. For 6 years, Lehigh County has been using this very same system to check voters in to Lehigh County to avoid long lines on the front end of the process. We have 6 years of data points from Lehigh County that this system hasn't been hacked, and they are very, very happy. The voters of Lehigh County are very, very happy to use this system. It's very important that we do not wait to purchase an e-poll book system. If you've seen the letter from our former printer, NTS, they are predicting for us, and part of the reason they are pulling out of Pennsylvania is that they believe because of Act 77, Pennsylvania is going to be an e-poll book state. If our former printer, who has now left us in a lurch, is predicting to us that we are going to be an e-poll book state, and we are heading to November 2020, when more people than have ever voted will be voting, why would we ever wait to implement an e-poll book system in November? That would be akin to a certain kind of madness. Now, some say that despite 6 years of positive experience in Lehigh County with this very same system, that there's potential danger with these systems. What I would say to you, the potential danger for us, coming off of our experience last November on the back end with difficulties, is to create difficulties on the front end by trying to cobble together a Frankenstein's monster of a poll book. That would be a huge mistake on our part, to have the possibility that human error could create long lines at the check-in of the voter, that the fact that it will be very difficult for us to put together a poll book that actually is functional. And by functional, I mean giving us the ability to timely check the voter in and then timely report the results. One of the things that I think Iowa is demonstrating for us is people don't want to wait for their results. They want their results as soon as they can get them. When I hear the Elections Commission is comfortable waiting days and weeks while we cobble together some kind of paper system for a fear, to satisfy fear, that is unfounded based on Lehigh County's experience, I think is a mistake. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I think I said Ron is on his way. The discussion regarding Article 8 contracts, Reynolds Business Systems, and Tenex Software Solutions. So let's do Reynolds Business Systems first.
Someone is waiting to get into the meeting. To let them in and allow anyone.
Let me in.
Please press *8. Okay, now anyone who tries to join will be allowed into the meeting. To undo this, lock the meeting.
What's the high sign to get in the meeting? Okay, so in non-election related news, the Reynolds contract that we are putting before you, the funds for this contract are to be paid out of the Northampton County Records Improvement Fund. The Reynolds is a state vendor who has done tons of scanning work for us. To give you a little bit of history, we have had sort of Recorder of Deeds book nightmare. In our last scanning project that we did, one of the reasons all the books are still sitting in the Recorder of Deeds office is because there were some quality control issues with the scans that went into the Landex system. So what Reynolds is proposing to do for us is to take the 1.8 or so million pages that are down there. They're going to scan and quality control the ones that need to be scanned and quality control the rest, which will allow us to determine whether we keep the books, dispose of them. That's down the road. However, this will give us a PDF version of the books, a version that goes into Landex, and if it's required, a PDFA that is archivable. So we're going to have all the redundancy we need to preserve our land records. And Reynolds has a great success record. They took our older records that were from the Recorder of Deeds office that were residing in the archives, the paper copies, the handwritten documents, they scanned those and then put them back in archives so that we don't have to have the paper moving around as much. They're a very good company, and we come to them via state contract, so their prices are fixed in that regard. They've also helped us with a lot of scanning in other places of the county so we could become less reliant on paper. That's all.
So is there a timeliness to this? Because I really, we're still having a finance committee later in the month. So does this need to be done tonight?
Because we want to be able to have those books moved to Reynolds custody so we could clear out the area so they can begin the process. And in the meantime, we're going to start doing some renovations down there for other office space to reconfigure the office.
Okay.
How much time do you need for that?
For what?
Be done?
It needs to be done on Thursday, yes, so we can get that moving.
Yes.
Who was the record keeper scanner before?
So it was a company we got through, I believe it was a company that was affiliated with IMR, which was the imaging management and records retention, I believe is what the name of the company. I don't know if they still exist. I believe they still exist. However, the updates in technology from when they did it before, it's comparing apples and oranges. We're able to get a better quality control review, and we're able to make sure our documents are placed back where they belong in the books, and so we have a contiguous record. And Reynolds will do that.
I think it was about 2 years ago, someone came in to present that handles a lot of the records. They pretty much told us how many boxes and boxes of records that need to get scanned, so.
Oh, yeah, from the archives,
Is there a
yes.
proactive thing too, where they're going to, I mean, is there? I mean, what's
Reynolds,
their goal?
Reynolds has been constantly identifying areas where we can scan and limit the footprint at the archives so that building does not get overfull. And Reynolds has been a key part and a partner with us in doing that.
Thank you.
Yes.
One question. I see this is on state contract. So my question is, was this the only vendor?
They're one of the, I believe there are other vendors that do this, but Reynolds is in Allentown. They're a Lehigh Valley company.
That was my
So,
next question.
Yes, they're a local company. They've been, like I said, a good partner with us, and they have the space to be able to store our books while they're doing this quality control project.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Could I have a motion to move this forward to the agenda this
So
evening?
moved.
Second.
I need someone from the committee, so John will be the first. Second.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. All in favor? Yes, moved. Bye. I don't have to do all in favor, I forgot. All right, I have a question. We have the Tenex Software Solutions, and we're going to have a discussion. So should we just put it together?
That's up to you.
I think we're going to put it together, because I think part of the decision of Tenex is based on some other information I asked for, which was a cost comparison between the poll books and what if we didn't get the poll books, what that would look like, correct? So if we have some of that information, Amy, if you want to come up and you could do a presentation for us and tell us the facts.
Okay. So is everybody fairly familiar with Act 77 and what we've been handed as a result? So Act 77 has allowed voters to register up until 15 days before the election, where before it was 30. And you are now allowed to apply for a no excuse mail-in vote up until a week before the election, which is the 21st this year. So in previous years, when we would order our poll books, we'd get our application from the poll book company about 35 to 40 days out, and then we would do our final snapshot from the state and upload that information about 25 to 30 days out. They gave us enough time that anybody who was still registering to vote were in the books, and it made the anybody that applied for absentee ballots. Everything was updated. It's a pretty normal system. We had the same poll book company for 24 years. We were informed this week from that same poll book company who's been operating in Pennsylvania for 30 years that due to Act 77, they are not able to meet the turnaround time and the deadlines, and for that reason, they can't get their coding approved by the state in time to make these deadlines, and for that reason, they're pulling out of Pennsylvania. So we have spent the last several days searching for answers from the state, from other counties, from other vendors. Here's what we found. If we were going to move forward with a paper book, we only found one other company in the state that is able to access the Shore system and download the files that you have to have from the state Shore system to make these poll books. That's Barton and Cooney. That is who Philadelphia County and Montgomery County uses. They are so busy that they still have not gotten back to us about whether or not they can even accommodate another county in that turnaround time. We also estimated that the amount of temp staff and the overtime required to update the books manually now, because we're going to have so much information that has to be added by our staff, since we now have 15 days of registered voters that are not going to be printed in the book. So we have to add supplemental lists. And we are going to have people who applied for an absentee ballot who are no longer eligible to vote at their polling location. That's one of the other laws that need to be hand stamped in the book so that the poll workers know if they show up at their polling location, they can only vote via provisional ballot. Now, if we are able to hand stamp those books and make sure that they're accurate so that we can ensure nobody is voting twice, once in the polling location, once via mail-in ballot, which you can now literally walk up to our office until 8 p.m. election night and turn in. we are going to need people working around the clock to get those poll books out and organized to our poll workers the Saturday before the election. We did estimate that we could probably push off that distribution until Sunday, which is not normal practice. It does give us another 24 hours to try and get these books together. That task, we estimate, would cost about $160,000 a year for labor and overtime. If we were not able to stamp these books, the alternative is sending all supplemental lists, and then every poll worker has to check both lists every time somebody comes in the polling location to make sure that they haven't applied for an absentee ballot in that window that we had already printed the books. That scenario is not ideal. People work long days at the polls. Lines get long. They're not going to want to check both lists. Because we can't rely on them to do that, and we want to make sure that there is nobody voting twice, there's no voter fraud, we would not feel comfortable in the office running any of our absentee or mail-in ballots until all of the poll books were scanned and we could make sure that nobody had voted twice. The scanning of the books is something that we always do after every election. That process typically takes our office 2 to 3 weeks. If we were going to get it done within the 3-day deadline that the state gives us, that's another factor into what this labor and overtime comes from, because we don't have the staff to make that happen within the deadline. So, that being said, the e-poll books, what they allow us to do is upload the voter file the Friday before the election. That means every single person that applied for an absentee ballot, every single person that mailed in their absentee ballot, up until that point, every single person that registered to vote, all of that information is in the book, it's up to date. So we know that no registered voter is going to be missed at their polling location. We know that nobody is going to be able to vote twice. Our poll workers know exactly who to give a provisional ballot to and to prevent them from voting on the machines. And we will know the night of the election that nobody that voted on the machines will have turned in a mail-in ballot. We can open our ballots the night of the election, and we have a scanner that allows us to run 18,000 ballots in an hour. We can have results out fairly quickly. The opening of the envelopes is what's going to slow us down the most, but the running of the ballots can happen very quickly at that point. So that's what we're looking at right now.
Question, what was the amount that you predicted for the cost if you do find if this poll printer comes back and you have staff? You said a number.
About $160,000 for both elections. 160 for both elections, the primary and the general.
But that's the cost of the printing of the book?
No, that's a cost of labor and overtime.
How much is the cost to print the book?
It's hard to say. Traditionally, it's been about $16,000 for the year. That's under no time constraint. We expect that price to dramatically increase given the fact that they have to give us turnaround times that are unprecedented.
One more question.
Yes, go ahead.
So if we went if the election commission or whoever went with buying the poll books this year, 2 questions. What's it going to cost us next year to maintain the poll books? That's the first question. And the second question is, what kind of reimbursements are we possibly looking at from the state?
So the annual maintenance on the poll books is $40,000. Unlike the paper poll books, the e-poll books are eligible for the GEMS refund. And we did have the forethought back when we applied for our GEMS refund that this might be a possible purchase down the line. So we did submit all of those estimates along with our paperwork. So we are covered if we do purchase this equipment to get reimbursed 60% for it. If we get that 60% on the poll books, their total cost will be about $120,000.
So you didn't miss the statute of limitations
Nope,
on the
no, we made sure that
application.
if they told us to cover all our bases, we covered all our bases.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because I was at the CCAP Board of Directors meeting last weekend, and they were telling us that there were some counties that were denied funding for e-poll books. If you get it, great, but that's what I had heard. So I had an email from someone that came in earlier today, and there were a series of questions, and I'm sure you can probably answer most of these quickly. But I think that they're comprehensive, and since we're rolling the purchase together with the discussion, I thought I would just go through them. The first question that was submitted was, what are the plans for training poll workers for how to use the books?
So I did have a lengthy conversation yesterday with 10X to make sure that we could even make this deadline. We could receive them in time, we could get our staff trained, and we could do an intensive, immersive training with our poll workers. We would have 3 weeks in April that we could dedicate just to the training of the poll books.
Okay, next one. Do we know what kinds of slowdowns we might experience at the polls if the new e-poll books are adopted?
I don't think that there will be slowdowns. The reason, first we put in for 350 poll books, which is far more than we actually need for our precincts. A, we wanted to make sure that we had backups, and B, we wanted to make sure that there were enough stations for each polling location to try and speed up these lines that happen in presidential years.
I think that's the concern, lines.
Yes, and right now, we've all voted. We know that in the paper books, we have, A through F, M through T, etc. If all the Smiths come in at one time, which we've all seen, one line is backed up and 2 people are sitting there doing nothing, it's never going to be the occurrence with these. The entire voter roll for the whole county is in every single book. So the next available pad that's open, the next available voter can go to.
What's going to be the average time to look up a voter using the e-poll book versus the traditional for the poll workers?
So the poll books utilize the smart search technology. You can type in the first 3 letters of the name. And
So it's like typing into a search bar?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that
Instead of tabbing
makes sense.
through your book.
The next one again is, are we prepared to deal with long lines that might result if the use of e-poll books is much slower? I mean, I think that the crux of these questions in this first part has to do with, are we, especially in a presidential year,
Right.
If this thing, we've got something that's new to people as well as the employees.
I completely understand, and we've weighed the pros and cons of the lines and what the slowdowns will be, paper versus the e-poll books. And I have to say, the paper poll books already slow a lot of our workers down, paging through them. On top of it, now they have to page through 2 lists, not just one. They have to look through our supplemental list because we won't have all of the changes done when we send everything out to the printer. I think that's going to slow people down significantly if our poll workers are even diligent enough to check both lists.
Okay. A couple of these other ones that I got were from more about a security, and I think that's more for the company to answer. But the next one I think is relevant. It was, if new e-poll books are introduced, what are our contingency plans for precincts where they fail to boot up on election day? Maybe you have a dead battery, maybe you have a glitch. I mean, I'm thinking of all the times people come to do a presentation here and they can't even show a PowerPoint.
Well, so that goes back to why we way overestimated on the amount that we purchased. We wanted to make sure that we had a backup for every single polling location should our worst case scenario happen. Most cases, polling locations that had 1 book in the past may have 3 e-poll books, if that's what it takes to make sure that we have the backup necessary should there be any kind of malfunction in any of them.
Yeah, I think their concern here again is that paper doesn't fail. Computers and laptops and like I said, I mean,
Paper doesn't, but humans do.
It's been an ongoing issue here. Next one is, let's see. What procedures are in place to handle a situation where a larger number of voters than expected cannot be found when looking up their names on an e-poll book on election day? So I'm guessing that's a provisional ballot is what, if we can't find somebody's name, if that's an issue?
I mean, it would be the same as it would be in a paper book. If a person's name is not in the book, traditionally, they would call the voter registration office just to double check, hey, is this person even registered in the county? And we would go for their, I mean, it would be the same as in a paper book if somebody was not coming up in the poll book.
And this next one, I think, has to do with something that was failed to be done back in the fall. And that was pre-election logic and accuracy testing. What assurances do we have that the pre-election logic accuracy testing will be conducted in a careful and rigorous way?
Lena from 10X will be calling in for the council meeting.
Okay.
She can probably speak to this much better than I can. I'm not entirely familiar with the whole e-poll book process. I did certainly emphasize the troubles we had in November and that we are being extra diligent about everything moving forward. Not to put too much pressure on her, but there's a lot of pressure on her to make sure that that everything is done triple checked.
Yeah, I think that if this is the direction you choose to go, that there must be a full simulation. Not what took place, up in a lab somewhere, whether it's a mini election or something of that sort, because I think the biggest failure last fall was the not doing a mock election or having, a random sample tested and election results reported, a week or two beforehand. So we could have caught a lot of the problems. But some of these other ones are technical, and I'll probably ask them when the vendor is here. So thank you very much.
I just wanted to, back to your point about voters that didn't show up. The one nice thing with the e-poll books, so traditionally in the paper books, if they weren't registered in that precinct, they weren't in the book. So we get a lot of calls in the elections office on election day. This person's not in the book. Can you please tell us where they're registered? Direct us to the polling location. The nice thing with the e-poll books is it's going to have every registered voter for the county will be in them, and it will tell the poll worker in real time, this person is registered in Northampton County, but their polling location is Bethlehem 3, not Bethlehem 5. And it will give them directions to go to Bethlehem 3 and vote in their legal precinct. Before, that was a phone call they had to make to our office, and we had to relay that information.
So you had mentioned Philadelphia, and that's an interesting thing that you brought that up. The city of Philadelphia did adopt the same voting machines as we did, and they didn't have the same problems, as far as I know. They also had adopted e-poll books, and it came to my attention that they have gone back to paper this year. Do you know why that is? And
I don't know the full story. The last time I was there with them, with the commissioners, their intention was to use the e-poll books, and they had rolled them out during their mock election and their voter demos. From what I know, the company that they purchased their e-poll books from, they got decertified, and they had to go back for testing, and that's why they pulled them. So they're tentatively using paper books until they can get an e-poll book that's certified by the state.
Okay, so then this happened to them. Who's to say it doesn't happen to us?
Because Lehigh County's been using it for 6 years.
We'll see. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just had questions. I got the sheet I went over. And, thank you. I was just looking at this. The $329 is per the tablet, and then it's a $300 extra for each tablet for the precinct central software. The total for each tablet comes to $749. All right. So, and I just have this, but working out that math, we're getting 350 tablets, correct? All right. So the post 1 year support and maintenance comes out to $43,750. but then it says $125 per tablet to license it each year. Is that correct?
That's the
Annual-
43, that's, the total is that 43,000.
Right. So, but the question I have is, if the licensing fee is $125 per tablet times 350, that's the 43,750. How does that include maintenance? I mean, let's say we have a problem with a tablet. Let's say, I don't know, anything could happen. What if they need to upgrade in 3 years? Because we all know electronics. I had an iPod and it was great until the guy at the Genius Bar said, oh, well, we don't support that anymore. So the thing is, I mean, is this built into the contract, or are we talking about extra costs? Because all the 43,750 covers, from my math, is the license each year on each tablet. In other words, there's no I can't see where the maintenance part comes into it.
Oh, I can't speak to what the contract covers. I don't have that. I don't know that information.
Okay, so that's something I should ask them when they're going to be here later, right?
She's calling in.
Oh, is there a reason why they can't have somebody here?
She was traveling this entire week. They're based out of Florida. I know she's been training all over the country.
We're also going to give them over $250,000.
I understand that, and I did try, but
some of these vendors,
she was literally in an airport when I asked her, heading in a different direction.
And that's not it's not your fault. I don't blame anybody sitting out there. I just am fascinated by modern vendors. Whatever.
Is that what you're looking for?
Is that what I'm looking for? Annuals? Oh, so there's an additional, is it $32,000 maintenance starting in year 2? I was just given, I didn't see this sheet.
Like I said, I don't have the contractual.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. Yeah, I get it, and that's a question for the phone.
I
When,
think that was one of the questions I asked, so, right? What was next year's?
all right, you know what?
I know that the annual maintenance is 40,000, but beyond that, I have the same information.
Yeah, I mean, they have it listed as you're right, that's what they have it listed as, support and maintenance. But if we have to license it every year, if you total it, that comes to the 43,750. So I guess I'm going to have to ask her. I know there's going to be issues beyond licensing if we pay extra or whatever. But I'll ask her, do you have something that you know more than the company?
Not more than the company, but I did read the IT contract, or the IT portion of it, and the licensing and maintenance. So you talked about upgrades to the software.
Yeah.
We're purchasing the licensing for each of the 350 machines. So when we do the licensing agreement with them, it is licensing and upgrades on the machines. So it's the software that's inside the machine, and then any maintenance that goes along with that software.
Okay, but suppose there's a problem with the tablet.
They're
The
iPads.
hard part of the tablet.
They are iPads that we are probably going to be purchasing.
They're going to get abused.
There is that possibility, and you can ask about maintenance
That's
on
all.
those.
No, yeah, I mean, I just, look, Amy's right, and I hear what you're saying, and I see what they put down, but, as you know, you're the Norco money man. If you do the math adds up to the licensing fee for 350 machines. So I didn't know it. I get it. They wrote software license each year, and that's fine. I get it. They're going to charge us that each year, but I'm wondering then if there are some other issues that come up. It's always it's not the dollars, it's the nickels and dimes that end up catching you at the end, and that's all I want to know. So I'll wait until they call in, but thank you, Amy.
Yep.
I'm finished.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Did I hear you correctly when you said you're not sure if we can even get this printed? There's no guarantee if we want to go with paper?
I have not heard back from Barton and Cooney. They're the only ones that I have been able to find that are able to print the secure files from the state system.
So we're down to one if so chose that we had to go that way. And there's no guarantee we can even get it done.
Our only other option would be to try and procure Shure printers from the state and somehow piece together an in-house printing situation, which would be Herculean.
Manpower issue with that?
Manpower, space, resources. It's not something we've ever done before. And we would still be under the same time constraints that a seasoned printer would be under.
That's my last question. Cost for all that?
There's no cost for the Shure printers from the state. They will provide that. I can't promise you the time frame in which they will provide that. We've requested workstations and scanners and other things from the state. We are subject to how quickly they are able to get that stuff to us. But we would have to buy a binding press, and we would have to hire at least 6 more people to do that full time.
How many?
6.
So that cost is on top. Okay, thanks.
Interesting you brought that up. Bucks County does theirs in-house.
They do.
Have we
So does
reached,
Allegheny.
have we reached out to any other county and asked and offered to pay them to do ours?
No, and I'll tell you, the counties that I spoke to that do their printing in-house are already as frazzled as we are with these changes. I think that if I asked another county to do our printing for us, they would laugh and hang the phone up on me.
Well, if you don't know if you don't ask.
Well,
so
I've had these
that's-
conversations, and they do the printing in-house because they've always done their printing in-house. They're huge counties with lots of staff and lots of resources and lots of space. But given the new timelines, they have a 3-day turnaround just like everybody else. They're not going to be able to do their books in 3 days and other counties.
Okay. The other question, I guess, since Mr. Barron raised the issue, in the past, we've had our IT department assist in some of these technologies. What role do we anticipate them playing? I know when Al Jordan was here, I had supreme trust in him. You know, lately, when people come up and can't even give a PowerPoint, that gives me, reason for concern.
So on election night, Al was part of that. IT does support our computer technology, but the primary person who is loading up and interfacing with the machines is Lisa Andersitz. Lisa has been with the county for 1 million years. She will continue in that support role for the IT department. She also is the one who ultimately publishes results when they are printed out on the county's website, because she's the one who has access to do so. So she is going to maintain her role. IT has a role in keeping the network up, supporting the computers that we do use, for any interactions they have to make sure the state, that we could keep our computers up to the state system. Because if you go down to voter registration, there's a switch they flip between being on the state secured network versus being on the county network and then being able to see the outside world. So both of them don't cross over, and we can maintain the integrity, safety, and security of our voter data. That being the case, IT will support in that role as they have traditionally, and Lisa will still do her normal voter upload as she did. She was with us during the last election till what time? 6:30 in the morning. So it's gonna largely be the same whether we have the e-poll with the e-poll books. Same level of support.
I'm passing these. I thought these were just Ron's papers, and it's not. These are things that you're supposed to have, so I apologize. But these are some cost comparisons that they did before. You need to pass these down, please. And I guess there's 2 other companies that you looked at
3.
besides, because I have Ask ED, No Wink, and then the 10X.
There should be an ES&S.
Oh, okay, that is, do I have that? Did I pass
Yeah,
that
you
too?
passed it.
Okay.
I think there's, you passed out.
Is that the one
5.
that says, includes the scanner? 5,000, 120?
The ES&S one, yes.
Yeah, okay. So do you want to speak to, can you just speak to these and?
It's not that we chose 10X. We went off of the recommendation of Lehigh County since they had experience with them. It also worked out that they happened to be the lowest bidder. So that was really there was not more to it than that.
But the way that 10X is written up, it's written up per unit as opposed to total cost. So what's the total cost for the 10X contract then?
$311.
And then that, because everybody else also does have their maintenance fees and their software license and stuff put in here, so then I guess we need to see that as well. What I wanted to know, and why I asked for this, and I guess I wanted to see numbers compared. So this is good, but I also wanted to see the numbers of the paper, because I wanted to know how much it would cost to print. I wanted to know how much this person power would be, because it's like I listened to the election commission meeting, and it sounds like we could just go out and figure it. Like, I want to see how much it's really going to cost us, because it's very easy to say paper because this is expensive, but it's going to cost us in people and time and training and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the difference that I wanted to see. And I guess I wanted to figure out if, like, 5 years from now, how does it balance out? Like, we upfront the cost here, and then it doesn't cost us as much later, whereas it's always going to cost us the same amount for the person power and the overtime and the printing.
There's no way to get this done manually without all hands on deck. There's just no way to meet the deadlines without it. We don't have a choice of delaying the election because we couldn't get our poll books printed or our poll books stamped, and we just don't have that option. So our only option is to add enough people as possible and make them work as many hours as it takes to hit those deadlines. It's just the only choice that we have.
So how many people are you talking? And you may have said this, but
we estimated over the year probably about 20 people. Now, that's given we have a space to put them. I know you've all been in our elections office. I just added 2 workstations to my office to put people. I don't know. I don't know where that's supposed to happen.
So those 20 people, and is that 20 people in addition to the people that already work in your office?
Yes.
And you have
I
how
can
many
tell you
staff?
Lehigh County just hired 30 temps.
So they'd be temps.
And they
how
have
many-
e-poll books.
How many people work in your office currently, not including you?
Not including me, 5.
And of all these people, how many are eligible for the overtime fees?
Everyone except myself.
Okay. So all of our employees are as well, okay. The other thing I wanted to ask, and you may not know, what did we, because I was the one that talked to Catherine Bachvar, and she said, put everything on now so that you could get reimbursement. So have we looked at, if we get reimbursed, how much we would be getting back? Do we have numbers, or what did we actually put on the request list for her?
We put everything just in case, because we were told the same thing too. If there's any piece of equipment that you think you might need, especially given the Act 77 changes, put that on there and submit it as early as possible, which is precisely what we did. So we did put the e-poll books on there. If we get reimbursement for them, they should cost about $120,000.
And did you also put an additional scanner on there for the absentee ballots, et cetera? Because I know, because didn't we get one
We
big
put it
machine
on
with the
there,
last
but
purchase?
we no longer need it. We have 2 450s and an 850. We have, the scanning is not going to be the problem. We have the capacity to scan our ballots very quickly the night of the election, as long as we know people aren't voting twice.
Okay.
And that's where we're
That's
at.
the issue.
The quality control and making sure that there's not voter fraud.
Quick question, maybe you or Mr. Barron. What's the term of this contract? We bind these and we have a yearly maintenance fee. I mean, what is the actual term of the contract? not what we might think.
So the term of the contract, I don't know how specifically long they structured this term. We are purchasing the e-poll books.
Yeah.
If we want to continue using this method, the term wasn't necessarily, as long as they are certified by the state, they would be our e-poll book provider. So we're purchasing that one-time fee, that particular e-poll book. We have that maintenance and contract ongoing with them until we stop using that specific e-poll book. If you remember when the young lady was here last meeting, she said there were some people still using the third generation iPad mini as their e-poll book. That came out, about 6 or 7 years ago, and they're still going strong with that particular device. And their software has been able to maintain in the iOS system a long track record. I do not see any issue with that. We would just have to keep paying the maintenance fee. And any e-poll book provider, we pay maintenance on Microsoft Office every year, on Microsoft Outlook every year. We buy a certain number of user licenses. It's just the way software works in an enterprise system, which is what we are.
Part of our job is what ifs, even if I don't believe the what if will happen. What if in 4 years let's say it's a bust. I don't care who's using it for how long, all those examples. Let's say a future council says, oh my God, we're going to a printed book. We'll go to Venezuela if we have to get them printed, but we're going to get printed books. Is there any buyout, or are we penalized in any way? That's, I guess, part of my question. Let's say we decide we don't want to use your 10X in 5 years, period.
Well, we have 350 wonderful iPads that we can wipe, we can have OS put on them, and we could sell them on county surplus.
All right, so we don't know, there won't be any penalties to the county, or we don't know. Well, no,
All of our, Mr. Heckman, all of our contracts have.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm here presenting as a layman, and frankly, I say trust but verify. And when it comes to vendors and the money we start spending, I really want to verify, because, these guys, they're not doing this because they love us or any other counties. I mean,
And Mr. Heckman, all of our contracts do have 30-day out clauses. We have the ability, either party have the ability to end the contract after 30 days. Every contract we ink that goes through procurement.
Okay, I mean, so 5 years from now, if something goes bad, as long as we give them 30 days notice, we don't owe them a nickel.
Correct.
All right.
And we're purchasing
sure.
part of that $311,000 Ms. Cozy talks about. We are purchasing that device.
Yeah.
And that device will be ours from the day it comes in and we receive it. So once we receive it, it's in use. We have the device, it's ours.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I know it's one thing when we were buying things like trucks, cars, now we're into, the electronics. It's an ongoing, it's an upgrade, it's refreshing. I remember when somebody came in and said the K cars are all junk now, we have 200,000. That's easy. Okay, well, the car doesn't run, we got to get another car. But now it gets a little bit more involved and a little bit more intricate. So that's why I'm asking.
We have 100 cars. I don't know, we bought how many did we put in the budget this year? Like 4 or 5?
Yeah.
So we spend a lot on cars every year.
No, I know we do, and I get that. But, the electronics, cars I get, but the electronics, and I know Mr. Giovanni and I sat through the meeting with the Election Commission, and I mean, some of the things they said, it's almost gets into voodoo territory. Well, could this happen? Somebody could scan it from Mars. All of that stuff, I guess, is conceivable, but,
And if you remember the presentation that the young lady
possibly.
had, the young lady from 10X had, she noted that some counties are using different versions of the iPad. So you had said one of them breaks. So if the pad you purchased is no longer available, you buy a different one. They still wipe it. It's still on the iOS. They still load the same software. And whether you have the 3rd generation iPad or the iPad that's now the 8th generation, it's still, that app is still going to work the exact same way. It's going to be locked down. You're not going to be able to access anything else. And it's that they've built that model on the Apple product, which It's been around for a while now.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Is the screen, and this is a question probably for the folks that came in to present last week, I guess they're gonna be on the phone call. So when you're looking at the iPad, can you pinch the screen like you can on a normal iPad for this stuff? Because, you know, most of the folks that volunteer are, you know, they've been doing it for a long time.
Yes, they have.
Right.
It's pretty intuitive. There's no swiping between apps or anything like that.
Can they open the screen up to look, I mean, I
Oh,
know.
you mean to enlarge the text?
Yeah, is there a setting or something so they can see? I mean, is it user-friendly for the
I'm not
challenged?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, the screen itself, the words on the screen are much larger than they are in our printed books. I can tell you that much.
Well,
I don't know
okay.
if you can enlarge them on the screen
Okay.
or not.
Well,
Not entirely
that's
sure.
helpful because,
The
Yeah.
display is much larger than it is in our printed books.
and then how's the voter signing these books?
They can either sign with a stylus or they can sign with their finger.
And are the stylus in the contract for the
Yep.
purchase of the stylus?
Yep. No, that comes with it.
Is there a way to secure them so they don't walk off with them?
That I'm not sure about that.
Because it's value, right?
I'm sure we could fashion something.
But they have the answers to all these questions.
Yes, Lena
When
can.
she came in last time, she didn't do the PowerPoint on the screen.
I know, she was having.
And I think that.
We
was-
did
I don't
see
know
it.
whose fault that was.
We
but-
saw it in the Elections Commission meeting, so we did,
Okay.
unfortunately, we got more of a presentation
Because I think
in that
people
meeting.
would
but-
be more apt to use a pen versus their finger.
Yes, and that.
And also
a
for
stylus does
accuracy
come with
too,
each one.
to looking at the signatures. you know.
Yep. Yep, she said a stylus comes with each pad.
Discussion.
Well, I guess my last question is, so timelines, let's say we do purchase these. Walk me through a timeline to primary, and then whatever potential costs you'll have along with these in terms of training, staffing,
So the
education, I
the poll
guess.
books would arrive in 6 weeks. The poll books come already loaded and to Northampton County spec. So it's not like they come here and then they have to come and they have to program them. It's a 6-week timeline. They come to Northampton County ready to go. At that point, that brings us to March 23rd, the week of March 23rd. That's when we would do an intensive staff training. And then we have up until a week before the election to do as much poll worker training as we deem necessary. That gives us about over 3 weeks.
Do they get paid for that training?
Yes, they do.
Can you foresee any other costs?
I did ask Lena about support. Obviously, we, especially given with what happened in November, I'm very nervous for my office. We're being overly cautious about everything we can be. We want to make sure that we're covering all our bases. We don't want to see anything go wrong. So I did emphasize that we would like to have on-staff or on-site support for the training. We would like to have on-site support for the day of the election, and we would like to have on-site support for the day after the election so that they are with us every step of the way, where this isn't something that we have to know 100% confidence in. We're going to have somebody from their company with us at all times.
And is that included in the contract?
That
or
was
we're
a
gonna have to
conversation
pay
I had
extra?
yesterday, and she was in the airport, and she didn't have numbers for me on that. So I don't know what the cost will be, but it is available.
Can she get them by 6:30 tonight? We could always ask, right?
Yes, yeah.
Anybody have any other questions?
You know what, can I ask, since you're here, Amy, and you said 6 weeks to get everything loaded and that. So that really puts the crunch on you and your staff to get out to the poll, the judges of elections, poll workers because there's going to be I get it. It's really the book, but in electronic form.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of us seasoned citizens probably would figure it out. But, it's going to be tough. So you're looking at maybe, you said around 4 weeks to train really intensively and get the folks. You're going to pull everybody in. So you're going to be doing that, and that sounds like it's going to be one heck of a job. You also, though, are you comfortable with the manpower you have and the time you have for that, but also the actual voting machines? Because we're not getting into that really tonight, but sorry. But the thing is, and if this was brought up, I apologize. I've got personal things I'm doing at home. And
No, you can bring
All
up
right.
that, because it's election issue, so
Well, all
we're
right.
going to need money for that.
well, no, I guess the thing is,
We don't need money.
we don't want, we all don't need to rehash that November, but you know, they've made promises and they have to fulfill them. I mean,
Yes.
it's just that simple. If they don't fulfill them, then we talk to the lawyers. But the thing is, you're going to, I know you're going to want to look into those too, and you're going to want to like check them out, have a few, and I know you've been starting to do that. But I mean, do you feel comfortable? Because you have a two-pronged challenge. You have the machines, if we buy these 10X, but you also then have to refresh and review the ES&L machines.
And implement 5 new voting laws. But
And implement the new voting laws. I mean, you know, you may say, well, what exactly is he asking me? And maybe exactly, I don't know. I guess I'm asking
I can give you our plan, if you want to hear the plan, because it keeps me up at night, I can tell it to you.
It's like, no, there's a lot going on in a short amount of time.
I agree with
and
you.
And, you know, we're all involved, but you are now charged with implementing all of this.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of eyes on you and your staff and on us, but you're the one that's going to have to carry it out. So I guess, yeah, a time frame, I mean,
Yeah, so
you feel you got a plan for both?
I have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F.
It's real good.
I'm sure you do, but I just wanted to.
So I will start by saying that ES&S has thus far has fulfilled every promise to us. They have been on site with us to all of the machines have been reprogrammed, reconfigured, fixed, moving forward down to, you know, loose brackets on the wheels.
But what about lights?
We have lights for every
for the
single
reading.
machine.
Okay.
Yes, we
Thank
do.
you.
We have lights for every single machine. So let me back up to training. We planned on spending the entire month of March doing retraining. We're going to do double the amount of training that we did in the fall in smaller groups. So these trainings in the fall, unfortunately, were done how they were traditionally done, which were in rooms of about 80 poll workers. We have a lot of poll workers. Where there was one machine in the beginning, in the front of the class, and, you know, we had a video so everybody in the back could see. To be honest, you know, hindsight's 20/20. It's not the best way for them to learn. So what we decided to do this time around was to double up on the amount of trainings that we offered and to do them in smaller groups so that we have groups of 2 or 3 that all have their own machine that can work with us as we go through the steps. Obviously, you learn better when you're hands-on and when you're doing it. Also, we presented to the Elections Commission to please raise the pay for our poll workers. Before, they were getting $10 for training. Most of the poll workers didn't even want to drive out here for that, for a 2-hour training. We've increased it to $50. I think they're worth that. It's the one thing we have control over that the state doesn't mandate on us, which I think will be another motivation to get them here and really, you know, pay attention during these trainings. So that's through the month of March. We've held off on scheduling the trainings because we don't know what other trainings we're going to have to schedule. Sure. So that's also the sense of urgency here. We need a plan one way or another so that my office can go. But ideally, we'll spend the month of March training our machine operators and our judges, again, intensively in these smaller groups. We also will have ES&S on site assisting us in all of those trainings. So anything that my office staff can't be pulled for, ES&S is willing to put somebody on the ground here and walk through it with our poll workers also. On top of that, we are in the process of revamping our LNA testing. We were able to actually go over the LNA testing that Philadelphia County implements, and it was
Acronym, can you explain the acronym?
logic and accuracy. So prior, about a month out from the election, is when that logic and accuracy testing happens on all the machines to make sure things like, a candidate not getting tabulated votes is caught. So we're revamping all of that. We've looked at what Philadelphia County does. It's very intensive, but we felt really strongly about following those guidelines. We're also going to have a predetermined totals. So just because somebody logs a vote during the logic and accuracy testing, we know they're logging all the votes that they're supposed to. So that's another thing that we've added to the logic and accuracy testing. We're also having some of our more mechanically and technologically advanced poll workers have volunteered to also come in and help us with the LNA testing. It also further gets them a little more familiar with the ins and outs of the systems, especially some of our poll workers that were upset with how the machines operated in the fall and upset that it caused lines at their polling location. You met Paul Saunders, who was here at one of the council meetings recently. He's actually, 3 of his machine operators are engineers. He's going to come with his machine operators, and he's going to help us logic and accuracy test. And that gives him a level of confidence moving forward, too. He feels really good about that. He's actually working with us now in the elections department. That's part of also the transparency that we're trying to implement moving forward. This is not a process that we want to keep private. We're happy to invite the media. We're happy to invite the public, not to touch the machines, but if you want to observe our process and see what's going on, we want to instill voter confidence. Obviously, that is the #1 priority. So that moving forward is going to be much more intensive as well. And then once we move on if we move on to the e-poll book training, that's just going to be the minority and majority inspectors. So normally they don't attend a training, but these are also going to be smaller groups, and we're going to conduct it just the way that we did the machine training for the judges and the machine operators. We feel confident that we have plenty of time to do that.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Carrie.
As a new kid on the block, when is the company who is in charge of our voting machines making an appearance so I get a chance to ask them a few questions?
Well, they were actually in the building today. They came to pick up some shipments for the machines today. I think they moved Marcus here permanently. Poor guy got relocated to Northampton County just for us. So they're here a lot. We can certainly arrange a meeting for you if you have questions.
Mr. Myers, just so you know, after the maybe it was last year, we did say to them when they gave the last presentation that we expect them to be back here and show us the update and hit the buttons, and you can walk out and push it if you want to. And I think we're looking at a March meeting. We're hoping to simulate, if not being able to use the actual ballot once we know what it looks like, because it won't be as big as the November, but or replicate one, fake one like it, so then we can see what they've done and how they have. And they'll be here, yes, for any questions, anything. So we just have to work out what's a good date to have them come in. But I definitely want to see them come into one of our meetings.
They've been very accommodating. They're happy to show up if you
And
need
the
them
other
here.
company's going to be back before that too, Tenix? She's going to be back in town too, before the primaries?
Yes, she would be our on-site representative.
I'm done.
I was going to ask you, because you were so patient and quiet, so I didn't want to
Kind of
not
think,
give you a chance to speak.
think about what I was going to say and how I was going to approach it. All right, back to e-poll books. You say we okay it 6 weeks till they come in. Am I correct?
Yes.
Then you'll have the training. All right. They already will have the file into the e-poll book.
They won't have our voter files, but they will be configured to the specs that we're comfortable with for the county.
Okay. Then they'll be here. Then that file, I'm assuming that, and I hate to assume because IT guys don't assume, because we've seen so many problems. You'll get the mail-in votes. When's the last day for the application for the mail-in?
21st.
The 21st. So then you'll get all that information. That all has to be put into the file, so that has to get uploaded onto the ebook.
They would upload everything on the Friday before the election. So
Okay.
all of the applicants would be in the poll book.
And a database. So hopefully your database is good by Friday. So then when comes election, we open up the database and everything's good. Because that's my concern, because I've seen databases get corrupted all the time.
Yeah, all of that information will come directly from the state shore system.
Okay, I understand that. But I just want to make sure that timeline, haste makes waste in the IT. If you're trying to push all that, and we got to get all that information in there, I could just see a disaster coming.
That's their normal timeline. That's how they've done it in Lehigh County. Even though they haven't been under this time crunch, they've always uploaded the voter file the Friday before the election.
And I understand Lehigh County, but this is first for Northampton.
Oh, no, I understand. It's just, this isn't a rushed timeline for them. This is how they normally do it.
Okay.
So did you secretly know what LNA was before she said it?
Yes, I did. I'm up with her. I know the acronyms. In fact, I give you some more acronyms, but I want to hold you guys up.
Let us go slow.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just to piggyback off of Tom, so you get the information from the state, you say the Shore,
Shore system, yes.
when you go to print the books, right, is that the same load that you use to print the books with?
Yes, that also comes directly from the Shore system.
That goes into a printer's computer to print, right? They don't type them out, right?
No, I'm sorry, I always get this wrong. MDB file. It's an access-only file that is highly encrypted from the state system, and it's the same type of file that they have to use.
So it's the same process, right? To go into the printed, to go into the iPad.
Yes.
Okay, and then it's just once it goes into the iPad, it goes into, and the printed side goes into. Okay.
Yes.
What's the M stand for? I know DB is a database.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because M can mean,
Question for the phone.
yes, exactly.
So I guess if you want to have a seat, does anyone want to make a motion to put this forward? Do you want to have a discussion as council? We have till about 4:50 because we have to regroup for another meeting, but figured I'd give the council a chance to just discuss it among themselves
mean
if we
the
want to push
purchase?
this. Yeah.
If I may, Madam Chairman, yeah, I'll make a motion. I mean, I talked to Chris, and we tooled a sample resolution, which I think would express council's feelings if we go ahead with it. So I'd like to make a motion that we present and recommend this resolution. Well, it's on the agenda, but I recommend it.
Okay.
Based upon what I know right now, I know we have to give this county the tools to have a functioning election, whether it's e-poll books or paper ballot, paper books or e-poll books. But the time frame is, we've never been at a time frame like, I don't know if this is historical with the new laws. So I'll second that motion. They need the tools, whatever the tools are, to have a functioning election. Bottom line.
Any other discussion on the matter? There's a motion, there's a second. Okay, so it's put forward to vote on tonight to approve the amount of the purchase of the 10X of poll books. Anything else to be discussed? Costs? Any questions we didn't have or things that you want for the future? Okay.
Separate finance issue? An issue for the finance committee, not on the poll books.
Oh, yeah, do you want to do that now? We're having another finance meeting too in 2 weeks, though. This is
Oh,
just a
I was
start.
just going to ask, have we met with our outside auditors and how is that process going? I always ask that, and I hadn't heard anything yet.
So,
Could you take, and
they will-
especially for the new people, could you take us through what the outside audit process is?
Okay, so the outside auditors are actually hired by county council. So the way that process works is now they are not going to come on site until March. We have gotten the system down between fiscal and the controller's office that everything is done through the digital work papers. So we have been in communication with the external auditor specifically with regard to how the GPA finances went. So they have all their information. Basically what ends up happening is the internal auditors in the controller's office start working in late December, early January on doing testing of our financial systems. They do various cycle testings. They come out and test accounts payable, look at receipts, make sure everything matches up. They do all that testing internally because they maintain their independence from our financial system. They are able to do that, and the external auditors that county council hires can rely on that work at a discounted rate. So basically, our external auditors can rely on the work that is done, and then they are only able to, they only have to test a limited amount of transactions to make sure that the controller's office work, the internal audit team, is accurate and correct. In a few weeks, actually in a week now, Mary Alice Einfalt, who is the lead accountant, will issue what she calls trial balances. Those trial balances are actually the balances that are on the books without any audit adjustments attached to them. The reason we issue trial balances to the internal auditors is so that we are able to determine if there's any material differences. And material differences for our county, some funds it's as high as $300,000 or $400,000. That doesn't mean we don't test or look any further, but the materiality levels are so high because we have a $450+ million budget. At that point, once all that's done, for about a 2-week period, the external auditors are here. They do that testing. They meet with the controller's office, and then they work to create the report that you hear about in April or May when all is finished. So that's sort of the process in a nutshell. And up until that point, we're always giving the external auditors additional information. Our financial statements are due by mid-year. So they will actually issue, or I'm sorry, not by mid-year, by May. So they will issue a letter to us that explains if we have any deficiencies, what those deficiencies are, and then they issue an opinion on our financial statements. The goal is always an unqualified opinion, which is what we've been always getting, so I don't anticipate anything different this year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
It's Microsoft Access Database.
Oh, that's what it is? Okay, okay. I thought maybe since it's an Apple, they had something, I think it was an Apple, they had something different. Because I can tell you I'm not a fan of Apple, so.
Yeah, I've never had one.
No, me neither.
I was the IT manager for an electrical firm that had just gone from, I really wish I wasn't making this up, paper and fax machines to using email. And, some of the people had Apple stuff, and I just, and I say that while I have an iPhone in my pocket.
Well, and I have,
Well,
no,
two of them.
I'm an Android, but, I mean, we had municipal.
That's really That's gonna go national.
Are you kidding? That's a gold mine for Shelley. People have said over the years, how much money do you need to accomplish? You get all this historic, so is me. But the thing is, the deal is, I think the Freddies and I think she would, I don't know what she would do with that.
No.
But I think, you have big venues now, right? So.
Sorry, I didn't know something.
Exactly.
She has a night as a fundraiser.
Yeah.
So you can go, it's a nice dinner, you mix, you mingle, they got tons of stuff. Raise a lot of money like communities.
Yeah, so you're gonna run the economic development.
It's a matter of
personality that
Yeah. I think.
You paid down my daughter's name on her card. I don't know.
I feel it in there.
You know what, you're absolutely right.
I should be able to strike them in just like George says. You know, they should be able to pop right on there.
That's why I think this, I you know, Tom, today's day and age, phones, and I get fussy with vendors, especially big first time vendors. Right. One person making sense. It's different with business services. Yeah, but some of these guys, I'm always.
We got three of them.
We're calling your check, but the thing is, I want to ask you.
$5,000 contract, we have some money.
Here's the thing I want to ask, like, in today's day and age, though, you still have this.
I'm hoping.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Exactly. Why aren't we like chalking over each other?
You may not remember this in the phone book.
How many slides is that?
Right.
How was this?
Right.
That's better. No, I don't know, but I will find out.
I mean, they almost made it sound like they could fly capture Mars.
51.
I mean, he was going to do everything, anything we want.
But I don't, a lot of them are pretty.
To this day, I'm surprised, like,
There's not too many on each one.
we're putting them on Skype. So now we can go back.
So there's really probably
It just
30.
seems weird.
Yeah, with that, with like actual.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna, yeah, it's an election, you have the general public, there's gonna be problems. I think we all accept that.
So many applications to do that. WebEx.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff that you can hook you up to that. You could actually see the person actually talk.
Well,
Yeah.
when I go home, I'm gonna check, I did go to YouTube and I see that he was testing our YouTube feed. They're gonna feed us on YouTube instead of it did look better.
I'll tell you what,
but now we'll
Allentown
see.
City Council has a pretty good system. They actually flip back and forth from the bias.
There it is. Yeah. You can ask him.
Where is,
So we're,
I didn't know where the button was.
Yes, sir.
how you doing?
Doing good, how are you?
I'm fine. So we all set for YouTube, I was just telling him, I looked at our YouTube channel. Oh, that's Tom Giovanni.